All right. Well, welcome to the Leaders That Follow podcast. I'm Ricky Jones, and I'm excited to be here with Catholic hip hop artist, rapper, social media evangelist extraordinaire, Mr. ZAMORA, or AKA C2SIX. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, what do you prefer? Hip hop artist, rapper? What title do you like better?
Really, it doesn't really matter to me. Hip hop artist, rapper, musician, it's all the same to me. I usually say hip hop artist for the simple fact that sometimes people kind of put a negative connotation with rapper.
Exactly.
Uh,
Yeah, I was thinking the
yeah,
same thing.
yeah. So it just sounds a little bit less intimidating, I guess you'd say.
Right, right.
Yeah.
It's like when you go to Subway and you get your sandwich, they're not just Subway employees, they're sandwich artists, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Some of them are. Some of them are.
Yeah.
I don't know. They can work on their art a little bit. Yeah.
So how did you get into Catholic rap?
Man, that's a long story. So I'll try to give you kind of the bullet points because I've always done hip hop music.
Right.
I think I was telling Marcus Grodi when I was on the show on the journey home. Um, I remember the first time I heard hip hop. I still remember it clearly, and I was in third grade. And my older brother, who actually is a Protestant pastor, by the way,
Oh well.
yeah, he brought home a Run DMC cassette. It was the album called Raising Hell,
Hmm.
right?
So this was
And
the pastor, I assume.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
I said I assume that was before he was a pastor then.
Oh yeah, yeah. This is some time ago. He was probably in sixth grade, and I was in third grade. And I still remember like he brought home that cassette, and I popped it in. I couldn't stop listening. I was just hooked on hip hop. I was like, this is what I like. I started listening to them. I started listening to, Beastie Boys and Public Enemy and KRS-One and Rakim and EPMD and all these guys, and I was just hooked. And I was writing my own little rhymes and everything. I probably wasn't that great, I was just a kid. And then just as time went by, man, I just started listening to all different subgenres of hip hop. It wasn't just East Coast. I was listening to the West Coast guys and
Okay.
the Chicano rappers, the Mexican rappers. That's a big thing out in LA, in Texas. It was bigger in LA and Texas than anywhere else, I think, right? Um, and I was just listening to all kinds of artists, and I was doing my own little raps, and eventually I started doing it seriously, trying to make money out of it, and trying to actually do something with it,
Right.
other than just a hobby.
Yeah.
And I was actually decent at it, and I was decent at doing the business side of it, getting the bookings and doing all that stuff, and money started coming in, and before you knew it, I was doing this gangster rap. I mean, it's a long story behind that,
Right, right.
um, but long story short, I was doing gangster rap probably from about '98 until about 2008, so almost about 10 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then I had this what I like to call a come to Jesus moment around that time, and it was at one of my concerts. And funny story, and I tell everybody the same story. I was I went to a concert. A friend of mine invited us to perform at this concert locally here in the Dallas Fort Worth area,
Right.
and he told me there's going to be about 1,500 people there. Okay, cool. And he said it's an all ages event. And I didn't know what all ages meant. I just knew, hey, cool, I'll be there, pay me, And when I got there, 1,500 people were there, but they were all middle school and high school age.
Oh,
So I
okay.
was just like, wow. And it was just, it was sick to my stomach. And I wasn't upset with anybody but myself because I
Mm.
was just like, man, I got nothing better to say to these kids than all this, negativity that I'm about
Right,
to say.
right,
And
right, right.
the thing that struck me is they all knew my lyrics. They knew, if I told them jump up and down, they jumped up and down. If
Right.
I told them, put your hands up, hands went high. And I was like, man, I'm really influencing these kids, and I'm about to just put, you know, garbage out there for them.
Right,
And so
right.
I talked to the promoter, and I was like, man, how on God's green earth do you book a bunch of gangster rappers to perform for kids? And I told him you should be ashamed of yourself. And He just looked me dead in the face and he just said, "Hey man, I'm not the one rapping it. You should be ashamed of yourself." And I was like, "Wow, you know what? That's a
Right,
good point, man." And I wasn't even angry. I was just like, "You know what? Point
right.
taken. You're
Hmm.
right. I should be." And I cried, man. I did. I cried. I went to the VIP area. It was just a little sectioned off area by
Right.
the bar and stuff, and I just sat there and I cried for like an hour, and I just didn't know what came over me, and
Mm.
it was crazy, and I just that night I just decided I was going to change. I was going to do something different with my life, and just told God, "Hey, I don't know where you're leading me, God, but I want to follow. I'm ready to give up this particular style of music that I'm doing." So that's how I got into
Wow. So,
doing
so
Christian rap in general. Yeah.
right. But was it one of those things where like you decide at that moment you're not gonna do it anymore and you just from one day to the next stop, or it kind of was like a gradual thing?
Um, it was kind of it was a little bit of both, and I'll say it
Oh.
like this here because I didn't write or record any other music, and
Hmm.
I didn't book any more events. I did have a couple of contractual obligations,
Oh,
and I
okay, yeah.
didn't. Yeah, so I did have a couple of events that I had to perform at
Right.
due to contracts and money had already been exchanged and everything. So and I didn't want to give them back the money at the time, but
That's
yeah.
always hard.
So
But
yeah,
how
it
did
was hard.
though? Like since you had already kind of had that epiphany or that realization that you didn't want to do it anymore, was it harder to do those performances?
Much harder, much harder. And in fact, um, when I went up there, it's funny because my older music, even though it wasn't, Christian per se, there were
Right.
always small hints of faith in there.
Mm.
Um, um, it's just small things, I,
Right.
make some type of a plea to God or some type of
Yeah.
a reference to my faith growing up, right? And so I kind of like try to do those songs as opposed to some of the
Okay.
ones that were more blatantly
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
gangster rap.
Gotcha.
And so that's what I try to do at least until the time I got done doing those contractual obligations. After that, I was done. It was just cold turkey. I was just like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I've got a wife and I've got kids, and I just didn't want. I just want to be that guy for my wife and my kids. I wanted
Right.
them to have somebody positive they could look up to.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
I
It
mean,
was
when I had my conversion into the church, I kind of had that same thing because I grew up on hip hop and gangster rap and all that stuff too. And so once I didn't find God, God found me. But after that conversion, after I entered the church, I kind of same thing, cold turkey. I just stopped listening to all that music. I was like you said, there's nothing positive in there, and I'm trying
yeah,
to this change in my life. So I kind of just left it all behind. I really haven't ever gone back to hip hop at all or any rap, even like the Christian Catholic rap. And I think partly is because I haven't found that much that's great. There's
yeah, yeah.
other people who say they're good. Um, but I was listening to a lot of your stuff today, just in kind of preparation for this conversation, and I was impressed by what you guys are doing.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'm lucky, man, to have a group of guys that are just solid,
Yeah.
talent wise, and just in the orthodoxy that we try to pride ourselves on with the music, right? Um, we
And you,
have a spiritual guide. I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just say you guys aren't local, right? You guys are all kind of all over the place, right?
Yeah, we're all spread out. We're all spread out. The name of the group is called Found Nation,
Yeah.
and I live in the Dallas Fort Worth area, like I said earlier.
Hmm.
Um, one of the guys, Separate Mind, Fonzie, he lives in Houston. Um, a guy named Val Morale lives in the San Diego area in Escondido in California. And then John Levi and Nico Santana both live in Tampa, Florida. So we're all spread out.
Right.
And then we have a spiritual guide. We kind of operate under the umbrella of El Padrecito Ministries.
Okay.
So El Padrecito's father, Maceo Gonzalez, and he kind of acts as our man. He acts as everything for us. He does some bookings for us. He does some management for us. He does um, spiritual guidance for us. Um, he kind of nitpicks our lyrics too to make sure that we're not saying anything that's
Yeah, you should. Yeah.
in in opposition to the magisterium, the teaching of the magisterium and things like that. So um, it, we kind of reached out to him specifically for that reason,
Mm.
because we wanted somebody to help solidify us in
Right.
the eyes of the decision makers, I guess you'd say, or the gatekeepers, right? At these different parish events or diocesan events and things like that. Because a lot
Right.
of times that's what they're looking for. They want somebody who kind of co-sign for you.
Right. You get that
So
of approval, kind of. Yeah.
yeah, so it's pretty cool. And of course, Father Mateo was a rapper himself. I don't know if you've seen him rap in any of the videos or anything,
I
but
saw a couple of them today, and I was surprised.
yeah, he
Seen, and that was one of the things I was kind of confused about. I had seen like the El Padrecito Ministries thing, and I saw the foundation, and so I was kind of confused on what that is all about. Like, is it the same thing or two different things going on?
so El Patrocito Ministries is the nonprofit organization of Father Maceo,
Right.
and we are one of, I guess, one of the things that his ministry gets involved with. So he's got his dance studio, he's got this other stuff going on, and we're one of the things that he's involved with in that ministry is
That makes
working with Foundation and doing like the hip hop events and
right.
organizing events and all that type of stuff. And so, because he's kind of like us, he's kind of a former knucklehead. Um, yeah, just kind of had his own, reversion story.
Yeah.
Um, and so we just get along real well. We have the same kind of vision, the same um, target audience, I guess you'd say. That's kind of
Right.
a weird way of saying it, but you know what I mean, right? We're aiming at the same demographic.
Exactly.
The kids, the young adults, whoever, just anybody who can kind of relate to us. And so that's normally the minority kids, the urban kids,
Mm.
the younger or young adult people. So yeah, it's
And you
pretty cool.
mentioned doing like parish events. Is that for the most part where you guys are performing?
It just kind of depends. We do some parish events. We do a lot of diocesan events. We've done some of like the bigger, like the NCYC in Indianapolis. We've done that 2 years. The last two times that they've had that.
Conferences.
Uh, I'm sorry.
Is that like a conference?
And yeah, NCYC is the National Catholic Youth Conference, which
Gotcha.
is the largest, Catholic youth conference. Actually, I think it's the largest youth ministry event anywhere in the United States.
Okay.
Um, that's every 2 years in Indianapolis. And so we've done that one. Of course, we did the World Youth Day in Brazil and World Youth Day in Panama. And that was kind of, man, it was mind blowing
Yeah, I heard
seeing all those people.
the numbers on that. I was taken aback by that. I didn't realize it was such a big group.
Oh, yeah. When we were in Brazil, I want to say that the total number of people that came through over that week's time were like 4.5 million people.
Right.
Yeah, and when I tell you we met somebody from every country you can imagine,
Yeah.
we literally met people from Afghanistan and China and
Right.
you know Russia and all these different places, and it was crazy because there were people come up to us from all these different countries that didn't know a lick of English, but they knew our lyrics, and I
Wow.
was like, whoa, I was blown away. And I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and then in Panama, so it's kind of funny because God has a way of humbling us, right?
Yeah.
We when we were in Brazil, we had, I want to say, 4 or 5 different venues to perform at,
Hmm.
and our big event was so we had like 3 or 4 smaller events, and then we had one big event.
Right.
And when we got to the big event, it was raining as hard as can be. I was just talking about pouring down rain, and it was an outdoor event. So
This was
like this
this
big
was
event,
Brazil,
I'm
right?
sorry,
This
in
was
Brazil, yeah,
okay.
in 2013.
Right.
And so we had gone, taking time out of work and everything,
Mm.
8 days in Brazil, we get over there and get rained out. That was kind of, it was
Right.
kind of, disappointing, but
Yeah.
then it just kind of dawned on us, you know what? We're not here for, for that. We're here to do God's work, and it wasn't a surprise to God that it got rained out. Whoever's here needs to hear this is going to hear it.
Right.
That's the way we went about it. Um, so that was kind of cool. And then coming back in 2019, this year in Panama, um, we had, I want to say, 4 different events as well in Panama.
Hmm.
Um, the opening ceremony was like 250,000 people in the venue. And
Wow.
that was just, yeah, mind blowing for us. And then the following day, I don't know if you heard the story about Pope Francis going to that youth prison in Panama.
Yeah, I
Did
heard you
you ever
talk.
read about that?
I didn't read about it, but I heard you talk about it in the interview with Marcus Grodak.
Okay, okay, cool. So he was there, and we were able to go to that same youth prison the day before he was there, kind of in anticipation of his visit.
Okay.
And we got to, to perform for the youth and sit down and eat with them and give them some talks and stuff like that. And it was really nice. And then we had another event the following night. It was just a smaller event, like I guess like in a neighborhood area where they kind of built stages in some of the, I guess the more lower income areas,
Okay.
to kind of get
Like
into
in
those
the
neighborhoods.
square kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of like I guess what we might consider the projects or something like that, or
Okay.
kind of yeah, more those areas like that, right? And then that Saturday night, Pope Francis had a prayer vigil, which is the final night, and
Mm.
so it was. We were one of, I want to say, 4 groups that were performing that evening, um, after the prayer vigil. By the time we got up there were 650,000 people
Wow.
at that venue. And so I was like, wow, this is crazy.
Yeah.
650,000 people in front of us, and we're performing, and it's like, how or why we got here, I
Yeah.
don't know. Just to see people, you couldn't, I mean, yeah, it was crazy because we were on like a 3 or 4 tier stage. So we're like
Mhm.
3 or 4 stories in the air. And then on top of that, the people were like 100 yards away from us.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, they looked like ants to us.
Yeah.
If they're trying to rap in front of people we can't even see hardly.
Right.
It
Yeah.
was pretty, yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on that. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you, thank you. And yeah, yeah. After that, but we've done, other different events. I actually still do a lot of Protestant events, believe it or not. Um, I guess that's something I left out earlier. Um, when I had my, I guess you'd say my conversion experience
Hmm.
at that concert, I kind of I wasn't well grounded in my Catholic faith. I was born and raised Catholic,
Right.
uh, so I I actually just, I started kind of church hopping, talking to different people, and I let some people kind of get in my ear with a lot of anti-Catholicism,
Yeah.
that type of stuff, and just kind of, I don't know if it was in my arrogance or my ignorance or both, but I did leave or consider myself to have left the Catholic Church for a period of time
Hmm.
prior to reverting to my Catholic faith. So even
Right.
though I was like, I had this zeal, it was like it wasn't grounded, I guess, in truth. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I got you.
Yeah, and so I started doing when I started doing Christian rap, it was kind of from that perspective of being like a non-denominational,
Yeah.
yeah, Protestant. And so I actually had kind of developed a little bit of a following in the Christian hip hop world. And so I was a little bit, I had to kind of reinvent myself again from doing, so going from gangster rap to Christian rap, and from Christian to, labeling it Catholic.
Mm.
Uh, I wasn't sure how those people were going to respond to it. The people that were, really, I think well-meaning, but just weren't real supportive of anything Catholic, right?
Yeah.
and, and so
Well, how
I
did they?
just decided, surprisingly, your average listener just, continued supporting me like nothing happened, like it was seamless.
Hmm.
It was the ones that I got pushback from were the people that were um what's what I'm looking for? Like some of the pastors
Right.
or
Like
some of like
stuff.
yeah, yeah. The people that were uh, that have a little bit more knowledge and a little bit more grounded in their beliefs.
The ones
Just
that
your
have
average.
the Catholic doctrine in your rap, right? Whereas maybe some of the other people just figure you're talking about God and that's all that matters.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. The ones who really know how to distinguish. That's one thing I found out when I was in the Protestant world is that, man, people accuse Catholics of being, ignorant of our faith, and I don't mean ignorant in a bad
Right, right.
way. I mean just literally like just not well informed, right? Not well catechized, whatever the case is, right?
Hmm.
And the reality is, man, a lot of the Protestant, Christian people are equally as ignorant of the faith, and again, not in a bad way. I'm just saying
Right.
they're just not well informed, and especially not enough to be able to distinguish between what's Protestant, what's Catholic.
Right. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
in my experience too, I think is like there's a it's that you mentioned the zeal that you had like when you first kind of had that conversion and you were doing the Christian rap and you had that certain zeal and I think that's something that like we Catholics see that in the Protestant, from the Protestant perspective and they're coming at us with that zeal and they've got a handful of Bible verses memorized or certain topics that they're always preaching about. And so
yeah,
since we hear them say that, we figure, oh well, they know the whole Bible by heart and
hmm
it kind of makes us feel like we're, on a different level. But I think you're right there. It's not that every Protestant person is a biblical scholar or anything like that.
exactly. Yeah, and so when I kind of had my reversion back to doing the Catholic hip hop, specifically calling it that. Like I said, I just wasn't sure how people were going to react. Most people did react. Just it seemed pretty seamless, and I always just told myself, I'm not going to be too critical of my experience in the Protestant world, because the truth of the matter is that um, that's where my conversion came.
Right.
That's
Mhm.
where I learned the zeal. That's where I developed a passion for
Yeah.
apologetics and for scripture and for
Right.
so I can't be too critical of it. I can be critical of my former thinking,
Right.
but I don't want to dismiss anybody. I don't want to
Right. You want to
talk down on anybody or
gain from them. Yeah.
yeah. I want to be able to learn from one another.
Exactly.
Without arguing and stuff like that. Um, I don't know. It's a anybody who knows me, I'm a nerd nowadays, and so like, I mean, I could sit down and just talk about the faith all day, every day.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes I get a little bit not worked up, so to say, but I just get real passionate about it.
Right. Right.
And
So
I
when it
mean,
comes to that, I don't want to interrupt you, but when it comes to that, like you mentioned, you don't want to, get in arguments, things like that. But so how do you have those discussions? That's something I think a lot of Catholics struggle with, right? Like we want to be able to express our faith and share our faith, but it seems like when it's, a Catholic and a Protestant talking, it always, not always, but it tends to end up being people get emotional about it, right? Because it's what we care about the most, and so it turns into like this heated argument instead of a debate about beliefs or ideas. Like how do you have that discussion without um I don't want to say hurting feelings, but without
without it escalating, I guess, into something heated.
yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. Personally, and I'm sure there's a lot of different approaches. What I personally do is I just try to affirm, you know, and I can't remember who said it, but I remember a buddy of mine, Taylor Stroll, over at Forte Catholic. He said one time, and I can't remember who the quote come from. But he says, we keep what's good, true, and beautiful, right? And we renounce what we can't hang on to, and so like where we can agree with our Protestant brothers and sisters, I think we need to go ahead and just do that
Hmm.
publicly and just say, hey, you know what? I agree with you here, here, here. Hey, this is, this right here is solid. This is solid. This is solid. I totally agree with you here.
Hmm.
And then it kind of gets people's guards down. because it's like they don't really expect you to come in there and start agreeing with them,
Right,
right?
right.
And the truth of the matter is, we agree on most. I mean, obviously, what we disagree on is significant. I mean,
Right.
I'm not gonna act like it's not significant, but I mean, 95% of what we believe is the same.
Hmm.
And so, let's get that understanding first. That hey, you know what, we're not against one another. Iron sharpens iron. Let's sharp. Let's be iron, sharpen one another, right?
Hmm.
And I'm just real careful with how I word things. I think when I'm talking to people, especially if you're doing it like online or something,
Yeah.
social media stuff like that, because it's hard to see context or it's hard to hear context when
Yeah.
you're reading something.
Yeah.
So I try to use language that doesn't sound combative or that doesn't sound argumentative.
Hmm.
Um, they'll tell me I use too many big words or something. I'm like, hey man, those big words don't sound like you're starting a fight,
Right, right.
And so that's what I try to do, and this is just the way I go about it. And I think, people can really kind of tell when you're being genuine and you really care when you're not trying to, you know, that's one thing I do actually do say a lot. I do kind of reiterate, hey man, just to let you know before we go any further with the conversation, hey man, much love and respect to you, man. Thank you for the conversation.
Hmm.
Thank you for hearing what I have to say. I'm looking forward to hearing more of what you have to say. Things like that, because it just eases that tension and just lets them know, hey, you know what, this guy's actually just having a conversation. That's it.
Right.
You know? Yeah. So, how do you go about it?
I mean, I think it depends. Like for me, it's like if because what I notice is like we've kind of been following each other for a few years on social media, and one of the things I noticed is that like when you'll post something, and it'll be like a a statement of Catholic truth, and you
Hmm.
don't have a whole lot of commentary or anything. You say this is the way it is, and you'll see like a whole storm of comments and this big debate and discussion, and there's like the Protestant side coming at it and the Catholic side coming at it, and I always admire that because it's like you're getting the conversation started, right?
Yeah.
And but you're not doing it in a way that you're saying like you're saying, Catholics believe this. And I
Yeah.
think that's an important thing because you're stating a fact, you're stating a truth, and you're not getting into the emotional part of it. Because I think that's where I've struggled with before is like when you're having those conversations, you feel like you're attacking the other person or that they're
Yeah.
attacking you because they're saying, oh, well, what you believe is false. So it makes you feel like, oh, well, you're attacking my identity. And
Yeah.
that's where it gets heated. But when you're just
Hmm.
talking about an idea or a fact or a truth, it's a
Yeah.
concept. It's not something that's really it's not you might agree with it or you might disagree with it, but it's not like, you're talking about my mama, right?
Yeah.
It's a different kind of approach. And so I
Well,
admire that.
unless they're talking about marrying dogmas, then they
Right.
might be attacking my
That's
mama.
that's trouble, right, with Catholics, yeah. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I noticed that. And that was when I told you I was listening to your some of your videos this today. And one of the ones that I saw, let me see if I can find it here. It reminds me of this topic. It said, where did I do it? Oh, you said, I bet you've never seen a Catholic rap apologist, graduated high school but never was a college kid. I almost flipped when they told me that I gotta get out of Catholic church, and I'm thinking, man, I gotta spit extra hard because I'm speaking about the Catholic truth. It wasn't hard, I just had to let the lion loose. And I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
it's that quote that they attribute to Augustine, right? You don't have to
Yeah.
defend the truth, you let it loose and it will defend itself. I was like, wow.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what I see in you when you're doing that on Facebook. That's because that's where I follow you. And I'll see you post something like that, and it's a statement, a truth of the Catholic faith, and you kind of let it just sit there and sink in, and then people will react to it, and the conversation gets started from there. And I think a lot of
Yeah.
people aren't willing to do that, to be that bold, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing that's just my perspective is that I don't have to, talk about anybody else's beliefs in order to make the point about my belief. So
Hmm.
I don't have to come out and say, so and so is wrong about this. This is the
Exactly.
truth.
Right. Hmm.
I don't, there's no need for me to have to, because the truth of the matter is I mean, even if I did prove somebody else's belief wrong, that doesn't make me right by default,
Right.
right? And I think a lot of people that's kind of the route they go down. They're like, if I can prove everybody else wrong, then that means I'm right by default. So
Right.
they spend all the time trying to prove everybody wrong and never show you why they are right,
Right.
right? And so that's kind of the way I go about it. I'm like, you know what? Let me just I'm just gonna state my beliefs, and you can hate it or love it or hate it, right?
Right.
And hey, if, I'm not knocking you or your beliefs, but this is my beliefs, period. And yeah, sometimes it opens a can of worms, like you said earlier. Um, but I mean, at least the conversation being had, like you said.
Right. And I think that.
At least they're thinking, the wheels are spinning, and I always look at it like this because I remember as a kid hearing certain people talk or hearing certain people say things, not necessarily about the faith, but just anything that was, important. And maybe 10 years, 20 years down the line, I thought, wow, you know what? That makes perfect sense. It's dawning on me now. And I always hope that,
See. Yeah.
yeah, something I said or something you said or something, John Levi said or whoever, right? Um, One of these days, somebody's gonna be sitting around having a conversation or watching TV or something and be like,
Right.
you know what? I remember what that dude said, and that makes perfect sense right now. Like,
Right.
and it'll happen, and I don't have to be there to see it. I
Hmm.
trust that the Holy Spirit will cultivate those seeds. So,
Yeah, it's like the
uh,
parable of the sower, right? It says the sower went out to sow, and he's not worried about what happens after that. He sows the seeds, but God does the rest, right?
oh yeah, yeah. And I think a lot of us want to, and I've been guilty of it. That's why I say a lot of us, right? Um, we want to see like the immediate fruit, right? We want to see something happen right then and there.
Yeah.
It's like, and the reality is, I didn't have my reversion experience until I was in my 30s already. I'm
Yeah.
42 right now.
Hmm.
Um, and so I was like, I can't have a higher expectation on somebody else than I had on myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even when I had my reversion, it still took me 2 or 3 years to find my way back into the Catholic Church.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, how can I have a higher expectation on anybody else than I had on myself? There's just no way. It doesn't make any sense.
It's
Okay?
a process of growth. You can't expect it to happen overnight. The
Yeah,
other, the
yeah,
other thing that I like about like how you do that on Facebook, how you state those truths, is that you're doing it. It's direct, and you're providing clarity on things that a lot of people maybe have a false understanding of. Catholics believe this or Catholics teach that. And when you state it in a clear, concise, direct way, you're helping people to find clarity on something that they might have had a different idea about.
oh yeah. And usually when somebody hears it in a clear, concise way, they're like, "Oh, well, I don't have a problem with that. That's
Right.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah." Even our Protestant brothers and sisters, when they hear me say something in a clear, concise way, they're like, "Oh yeah, I get that. That's cool. I can agree with that." You know, um, and if you'll have your handful of people that want to twist it, but that's not what you believe, or that's not, and it's like, hey man, I'm just I'm directing. I'm sorry, directly quoting from the Catechism or from the early church fathers or from Scripture or from. So if you think that's not what we believe, then you have a misunderstanding.
Right.
It is. Try to leave it at that.
And
And
that's
so
the tough thing, I think, is like we don't have that as much as we should from church leadership anymore. With like we expect to have that kind of clarity or directness or boldness, I guess, from our priests, from our bishops. And
yeah,
and I feel like we don't. You know, like the conversation that I have with other Catholics, it's like I was talking to a friend the other day. We were talking about pornography and um, chastity and NFP. And I was like, I've been a Catholic for 10 years and I've never heard a priest in his homily talk about any of those things. And it's like,
Right.
why are we afraid to mention those things? It's like, yeah, not everybody wants to hear it, but like you said, the truth is, we're here, we're not serving other people's feelings, we're serving the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you had that
Um,
experience?
yeah, I have, and I always try to put myself in other people's shoes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I always think to myself, man, it's got to be hard, even, as a priest who's gone through the seminary and gone through the
Mm-hmm.
to kind of find that balance of stern preaching, and at
Mm-hmm.
the same time maintaining kind of that pastoral care type that they're also probably equally responsible for doing, right?
Right.
Um, you know, it's hard. I mean, obviously, you don't want to candy coat, but at the same time, you don't want to you know push people away. I mean, even Jesus said it, right, when he's talking to the apostles, and he says, I can't remember where it is in John, but it's in John. I want to say John 16, maybe, when he says, I have so much more to tell you, but you can't bear it right now.
Right. Right.
And yeah, he says, so when the Holy Spirit comes, he'll lead you into all truth. So
Mm-hmm.
to me, it kind of felt like, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. Uh, but I felt like he was saying, if I tell you half the stuff I wanted to tell you right now, you probably walk away.
Right.
I'm
Right.
gonna wait till the right time. You know,
Yeah, I could see that. And I think like if you look at the example of Jesus and the way that he teaches, a lot of times what I notice is the pattern that he'll do is he'll go and he'll meet with people, he'll heal them, he'll perform the miracles, do the kind of like what you said is like the pastoral kind of side of stuff first, and then
yeah,
he'll provide the teaching and catechesis. It's like if you look
exactly.
at like Zacchaeus, the story of Zacchaeus, right? Like he's there and Zacchaeus is trying to see him and he's like, I want to go and eat with you at your house. And
Mm,
then the Bible gives us the background about who Zacchaeus is, his tax collector, all this, and how everybody hates him, and the Jews are calling him a sinner and all this stuff. Why does he want to eat with the sinner?
yeah,
And just by being present and being willing to meet with him, he has that conversion. He never once has to mention his sin or anything like that. So I think there is value in that. But I guess it depends on the.
yeah,
But yeah, I think there is a way where you can be pastoral and still have that conversion. But I guess the trouble is like because to me it's like once you have that encounter with Christ, then you want the teaching. And I think what happens with the Catholic Church is like sometimes we want to lead with the teaching when the people haven't had the encounter. They haven't had the relationship
yeah,
there. People don't want to hear about the rules until they have the relationship, right? It's like when you
yeah,
fall in love
yeah,
with somebody, you're talking to them on the phone every night. You want to get to know everything there is to know about them,
yeah,
but not until you have had that relationship has formed. And so I think the
yeah,
same with Jesus. And I think I taught catechism for 5 years, and that was one of the things I realized is that a lot of times we lead with like the Ten Commandments. It's like you sit down with a
yeah,
kid, here's a list of rules. It's like, yeah,
yeah,
they're important rules, but nobody cares about the rules until they know the rule giver, right? And I think
exactly. Yeah,
that's
yeah,
the way Jesus would do it, right? He would go, he would be with the people, the people would form that relationship, and then he would, I guess, give that teaching. But as a priest, it's like I see where there's kind of that dichotomy, right? There's that struggle of you can't be just one and not the other. You have to fill both of those roles.
yeah, yeah. And it could be, I imagine that, I'm not in that position, right? So I imagine it could be hard to kind of find the right balance, you know. And then, of course, every priest, is a person like you and me, right? So um, not everybody's comfortable with being stern,
Yeah.
or being, just kind of putting your foot down. And so, I think, I don't know, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, I guess you'd say.
Hmm.
I want to see that, that orthodoxy. I want to see that, that clarity. I do want to see it. Um, and I guess, like I said, I want to be very careful not to uh, what's what I'm looking for. Um, not be aware of the pastoral care or the, you know what I mean?
Or hold
Um,
to, I guess, to a higher standard than you would hold yourself. I could understand that.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, like I said, I definitely do, wish there could be more of a conversation about how to be, to provide more clarity, how to, how to, make sure we maintain that orthodoxy. I wish there could be more of a conversation going on about it.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's where I would start is to say, hey, you know what? We think there needs to be more. We're not gonna bash anybody. We're not gonna knock anybody. But let's let's start this conversation. Let's start, uh, a year of, we've had the year of mercy. We've had the year of faith. We've had the year. Let's start a year of evangelization or a year of, where
Right,
we or not evangelization, but yeah, I guess, a year of clarity or a year of understanding, whatever.
right.
But we dedicate this to, maybe we train all the clergy, do extra training on really how to make those clear, concise points.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I don't know what the answer would be, to be honest with you, but
Yeah.
uh,
Well, it's,
like I said,
you mentioned, you're like, I'm not a priest, I'm not in that situation, but like, you can kind of look at it as a father, right? You have to balance it too, right? You have to be able to speak good, right? To say, we don't do that in this house, but then you also
yeah,
have to be pastoral, right? You still have to have that, because if you're just being the rule giver, but you don't have the relationship, then that's gonna mess your kids up too. So you have to, I guess you have to do that balance, like you said.
yeah, I definitely see that point. Definitely see that point. So yeah, yeah, you're right. I guess I don't know. I just don't. Sometimes I don't know what to say because it's kind of like, yeah, I want all the orthodoxy that this guy wants, but maybe I'm just not the right person to figure out how to go about getting it. That's why, I think maybe it just starts at home. Maybe it starts with us, like you said. We're fathers. Um, maybe it starts with us. We got to sit down with our kids, and I do it. My wife helps out probably more than I do sometimes. With making sure our kids are well grounded in the faith. We pray with our kids. We read the Bible with them. We talk to them about the realities of what's going on in Mass. We talk to them about sacraments. We talk to them about every day. I'm sorry, every Sunday when I pick up my son from CCD,
Hmm.
first thing I do is I talk to him about what he learned in the class, and we talk about the stories they talked about or whatever it is.
Hmm.
Maybe it's just we need more of that. I don't know what it is. Maybe that's where it starts because my son, and granted, he's got a dad that's just very on fire for his faith, right? But my son's really well informed, and I think it's gonna keep him from falling into different, uh, other denominations or other faiths or anything like that, right? It's kind of like money. They say when you're a bank teller, the
Hmm.
easiest way to spot a phony, to spot a fake bill, is to know the real deal. That's why they train you working at a bank to recognize a real $100 bill. That
Hmm.
way you can recognize the fake ones coming through. So if you really know your faith, you can recognize the ones that are not
Hmm.
speaking as much truth. I don't know. I don't know.
But
I guess that's
you're getting at that same point again, right? It's like we as fathers do have that responsibility. The problem is most of us fathers aren't doing that, right? You
yeah,
even
yeah,
said, I know that I'm not what most fathers are. Even most Catholic fathers are not the ones who are the leaders of the faith, of the home in
yeah,
general, but
yeah,
especially when it comes to the faith. And they say, if the father's not the one who's leading the family, it's very probable that those kids are gonna just leave their faith behind. And I think that's
yeah,
true. And this is it's just it's a tough battle to win. And I think part of me says, if we had those priests that were being that kind of a father to us, maybe that would inspire us to be that father to our kids. But
yeah,
you can't put all the blame on the priests either. But I mean, I do think men want to see that example.
yeah. It's funny you say about the role of the fathers because I think only recently that I realized that I think it was my dad's um, an argument I had with my dad that kind of maybe ignited my reversion or my conversion to the faith.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I didn't really make any sense out of that until recently. Um, but I had an argument with my dad one time when I was doing gangster rap,
Mm-hmm.
and it's ironic because my mom was very devout in the faith. In fact, my mom was almost a nun before I was born, before my older brother was born, and obviously she wasn't a nun, huh? But yeah, she was very devout Catholic. Um, and my dad was I don't know what you would call him. He was Catholic and he believed, and he just didn't go to church. He didn't go to mass growing up when I was growing up. But he always made sure that I went with my mom or that we went with my mom. And anyways, somewhere down the line, when I was doing the gangster rap, we got into an argument because he just didn't like me doing hip hop music. It just
Right.
wasn't his thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he had told me some, I guess, something I didn't really like too much. He just, along the lines of like he basically like he would never ever, be found dead at one of my concerts. You know what I mean?
Oh.
And I was just like, yeah, okay, and I was just like, at the time I was making pretty good money. Um, and it was my only source of income at the time, and I had my cars, several cars, three cars I think it was at the time, and my house, and my daughter was in private school and everything, and I was doing well, right? Um, and I just felt like, man, Dad, you could never just be happy for me,
Right.
like I'm out here, I'm living my dream, whatever. I'm making money, I'm supporting the family, and I felt like, I said, I feel like God's just putting everything, in my hands, God just giving everything to me, opening these doors. And my dad actually told me straight, just, it's real matter of fact. He said, God's not giving that to you. He said, God might have given you your talent, but he's all those other things, all that money, all the alcohol, the drugs, whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not coming from God. All that. He doesn't want you making money off of negativity. That's blood money. Yeah. And I couldn't argue with him. I knew he was right. And when I thought back about this, that really was only about 2 or 3 weeks prior to that conversion experience I had at that concert.
Wow.
So I was like, yeah, it's funny. Like I said, so back to your point, you talked about fathers being, that role model, that person for their children. My dad was that, maybe, even though he may not have even realized it, right? And I definitely didn't realize it at the time, But my dad was that for me. He was the one that kind of got me back into my faith, I think. Um, and like I said, he wasn't even the one that was as devout as my mother. So it's
Right.
pretty crazy.
But that
Yeah,
goes back to that directness and that simplicity, the clarity, right? Like it's a simple statement what he said, but
yeah,
a profound truth that you needed to hear, and
oh yeah,
no one else was willing to tell you that.
yeah, yeah. True. That's 100% true, man. And I'm forever grateful that he did say that to me. And I had my feelings hurt at the time. You know,
Right.
I was all up in my feelings at the time. I was just like, man, like,
Yeah, the truth hurt. Truth hurts sometimes, right?
yeah, yeah. So, I love my dad to death. He passed away in 2013, and my mom had passed away in 2002. So, you know, it just reminded me that we got to be good stewards of our talent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I actually gave a talk last week on Thursday, I believe it was, at the Young Catholic Professionals
Oh,
group here in Fort Worth, and I was just talking a little bit about how we all have our time and our talents, our treasures, and Jesus gave a parable about how we use our time and talent and treasures, right? And clearly said we're going to be judged by that. It's one of the things that Jesus said we're going to be judged by is how we utilize our talents. How we steward those talents. And so I'm glad my dad taught me that lesson because now that's kind of the rule I live by. It's like I'm just gonna be as good of a steward as I can be with this talent that I have. And it doesn't matter what your talent is, whether you're talented as a businessman or whether you're talented as an athlete, or do it to honor God and do it to be a good steward of it, because otherwise we are going to be judged for it. And that's kind of a harsh reality that people don't want to hear, but it's something
Yeah.
I think they need to hear.
I
Yeah,
mean, it's like everything that God gives us, all those gifts that He gives us, come with responsibility. And I think of
yeah,
Adam in the garden, right? God had
yeah,
given
yeah.
him everything, and he didn't take care of his wife. He let the serpent get in her ear, and look what happened. It's like
Oh yeah,
we have that responsibility, especially like we're talking about as fathers, as husbands, for the
yeah,
family, to be watching out for
yeah,
them and being the leaders that they need. So yeah, definitely.
yeah, yeah. So, um, what was I gonna say? I was right on the tip of my tongue. You said something about Adam and Eve in the garden, and the talents. I'll think about it here in a minute. I'll think about it here. I'll come back to it.
All right.
But yeah. As far as like oh, that's what I was gonna say. I think as far as the music goes,
Hmm.
um, it's like I think people get this idea that in order to be a good steward of the music, you have to be like very explicitly or very blatantly Catholic, or very or Christian.
Right.
And I am that a lot of times in my music. Probably more often than not, I am that, right? But I don't think that you absolutely have to be just explicitly about, you know, catechesis or evangelization all the time in order to be Catholic music or in order to be Christian music. I mean, you can make a song about
Could be Catholic
your
anything though, if you think about it. Because
exactly.
like every conversation you have is about faith, right? When you're sitting at,
Yeah, yeah,
it's not always a conversation about the hypostatic union. You could talk about what's going on
yeah,
in the world or whatever.
exactly. And so it's kind of funny because sometimes I find myself like wanting to write about something that might not necessarily be, you know, just blatantly Catholic, I'm like, you know what? This is just as Catholic as anything else because it has to do with, with my faith transcending into my everyday life,
Right.
you know?
Well,
And
that's
so,
probably for you too, because since you kind of have that label as Catholic rapper or Catholic hip hop artist, you probably
yeah.
kind of feel sometimes bound to only talk about faith. So I could see how that could be tricky.
Um, I wouldn't say I feel bound to it necessarily. It's just kind of what comes out. I just, it's, I always tell people, I just write about whatever, like, I'll sit down and I'll start writing, and whatever spills out, spills out. And that's what just spills out. It's like, I don't even try to write about it necessarily. It's just what I'm thinking about, what I'm going through, what I'm experiencing, and
Yeah.
so, you know, if I'm experiencing something different, it'll come out. But right now, that's all that comes out when I write. It's just like, Catholic bars or, holy bars, whatever you want to call it.
So how does that work? Like, because we were talking earlier about this group that you're a part of, right? The foundation. So how does that work when you guys have these songs where you only have like a piece of the song? Do you guys decide, hey, we're gonna write this song on this topic, or how do you guys do that? How do you work that?
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, that's what we do. So Separate Mind, Fonzie, he he produces the majority of our songs, like makes the beats for them.
Hmm.
And a lot of times, me and him kind of bounce around ideas with each other on different topics or different themes, I guess you'd say, concepts. And then we'll kind of shoot it to the other guys, or sometimes Fonzie will send us out like a batch of beats,
Hmm.
right? He'll send us a folder with, I don't know, 20, 30 beats in it. And he'll say, everybody choose 2 beats and come up with the topics for it. And then let us all know what we're going to be writing about.
Hmm.
And it'll come out, something like that. So it's just kind of, every now and then we'll get together. Like you said, we live far apart from each other.
Yeah.
Um, but every now and then we'll get to a studio and just kind of start writing on, off the top of the head, just kind of like right then and there, just like everybody just kind of write.
Oh, okay.
Or sometimes we'll do like I guess you'd say like a cipher type of deal, where we're just kind of like, just spit whatever comes to your head. It's not, we're not gonna do a hook or anything. We're just gonna do just whatever, just spit whatever comes to your head. And so it works out, man. We're all kind of on the same page, I think. We're all kind of hip hop heads and also uh, Catholic nerds. So yeah, so it works out, man. And it's funny because we all met online.
Hmm.
All of us met online. Like I didn't know any of these guys, you know, prior to 2010 probably. I think that Nico is the one that I've known the longest.
Hmm.
I've known him since 2010, and we met on YouTube. I think it was
Okay.
either yeah, YouTube or fatmass.com, one or the other. I think maybe it was a little bit of both. Yeah. Um, but yeah, so it's crazy what social media can do, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Here, 9 years later, we've been all over the world and
Right.
all over the U.S.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Was
pretty
like
crazy.
you and I, we never met before. We kind of, I don't know how we came across each other, and we have been following each other for a few years now. We've had a few conversations online, but other than that, I mean, it's pretty crazy how, like you said, how the internet can bring people together.
Oh yeah, yeah. Man, I like building these relationships with people, and meeting people and stuff. Because eventually I'm going to end up in Utah. I'm going to end up in in I don't know wherever it is, right? And
Right.
I'll meet the people that I've kind of developed these relationships with, and it becomes tangible, becomes real. And then it means a lot to me, man. It means a lot to me because I'm a people person. I'm real outgoing. I'm a jokester. I don't really act like it sometimes in my music, but I'm like a total jokester.
I see it
And
on
so like,
Facebook.
or the dad
Well,
jokes and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, well, that balance that goes back to that balance we were talking about too, because you'll have like this hardcore Catholic truth statement, and then the next thing is like some joke about tacos or something.
Yeah, yeah, man. Um, and it's funny because that's just how I am in real life.
Okay. No, I think that's important, that sense of humor.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and I think, the kids too, man. When I come across kids, well, I call them kids. I guess that shows my age because I'm talking about like, the late teens, early 20s, stuff like that. I think they're at the age where they're starting to kind of appreciate like a little bit more maturity
Hmm.
in conversation or in music and stuff like that. And so it's like, I kind of like to kind of give a little bit of both, like some of that maturity, some of that, seriousness, and just level it off with that comedy or
Right.
that food posts and stuff like that. I mean, I'm a foodie too, so
Yeah.
that's probably 90% of my posts are food, faith, and music, and dad jokes. So
Yeah.
that's how it breaks down. 25% of each, I guess.
That's funny.
Yeah, yeah, man. So what's going on out there in Utah?
Man, it's interesting because where I live in St. George is one Catholic parish. So to go from LA where there's a Catholic church on every corner to here, it's a big change. It's a culture shock. And the other thing with like living in Los Angeles or Southern California or pretty much anywhere in California, everything has a Catholic kind of roots or history. So like
Yeah,
all the cities are named after saints, and like so there's kind of like Catholicism has kind of permeated in a way. I mean,
yeah,
it's not like everybody's Catholic, obviously, especially in
yeah.
California, but I mean, you see all these references to it, right? There's a
Hmm.
deep Catholic history. And so to come here to Utah where it's the opposite, like there is a Mormon church literally on every corner. Like every neighborhood has its own church, and it was something I was really it caught me off guard. I knew that
Yeah,
Utah is a Mormon. It's got to be like 80% Mormon, I think.
yeah.
So I mean, well, I don't know about the whole state, but where we live in St. George it is. And so for me that was a big change.
Yeah.
So there's literally one church in all of St.
Wow.
George. And
Wow.
the next closest one, I'm pretty sure is Las Vegas, and that's 2 hours away. So,
Wow.
well, actually, that's not true. In Mesquite, but yeah, in Nevada. So it's at least 45 minutes to the next
Wow.
church. So yeah,
Wow.
it's different because like you can't really church hop that much in St. George if you're a Catholic.
Mm.
You have,
Yeah.
there's three masses on Sunday, so you got to make it to one of those, or back in
Yeah.
California, there's masses from like 6 in the morning until like 8 at night, and you just go down the
Yeah.
street if you miss one or
Yeah.
whatever. So,
Yeah.
but it's good. I mean, I think it's challenged us in a way because we had kind of built a community of faith. I don't know, community of faith, well, like we had a lot of Catholic friends, I guess you could say, out in
Yeah.
California. And so coming here, we haven't got like super integrated into the parish. And I think,
Uh,
back in California, we had done that before we started having all these kids. And so
hmm
we had met a lot of people before we started having kids, and so we still had those relationships afterwards. But now
Yeah.
being here, like we haven't really got involved in parish life because, family's first. And
Yeah.
so it's different. What I do like about, and that's one of the reasons why we moved here, is because it's very family oriented and family friendly. Um,
hmm
I mean, the Mormons have big families, and so that's
Yeah.
probably one of the big reasons. But even in our
Yeah.
parish, like I know a lot of people with young kids struggle with going to mass because they feel like other people are always looking at them when the kids are making noises, or and it's tough. We've got a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 1.5-year-old, not even 1.5. He's like a year and few months, almost 1.5, and then we have a 3-month-old baby. So when we go,
Nice.
it's like we're fighting with all the kids. Usually
Yeah.
the baby's not too bad 'cause she breastfeeds her and she falls asleep. I
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm carrying the year-and-a-half-year-old, and he's fighting with me, and he'll usually fall asleep halfway through after wrestling with him for like half an hour.
Yeah.
And then the 5 and 7-year-old, it's an hour at this parish. It's mass is usually about an hour and a half, so
Yeah.
it's a long time for them to keep their attention span, and so we've always struggled with them. And they're boys, boys want to be out running around, and to be
hmm
sitting in one place and just not moving
Yeah.
for our second one, it's hard for him, and so we struggle with
Yeah.
that. And but what we
I
notice is
just.
that this parish is very friendly to that, and there's
Yeah.
not a lot of young families.
Uh,
The majority of the families there are, older couples, retirees, and stuff. And so we get a lot of comments that but
hmm
positive. Like people come, oh, your kids are so well behaved, and oh, you have such a beautiful family, and it's
Yeah.
always like when we need to hear it, because it's always like when we're having a horrible day sitting with the kids, and they'll come up to, oh, your kids are so well behaved, and we're like, what are you talking about? It's just
Well,
not.
something beautiful about that
Yeah,
because it's like it's just was it Pope Francis that said, the children are the life of the church, they're
yeah,
the life of the church, and they're not the future of the church, they're the now of the church.
right.
You know what I mean? And so I always just think about when I see kids at mass, smaller kids and families that may be struggling a little bit because they got several kids at smaller ages. I was just thinking to myself like, man, like I was thinking Jesus' words, let the kids come to me, right? And I was like, yeah, man. That's to me. I just like I picture Jesus just smiling at those kids, like,
Hmm.
don't worry, they're not bothering me at all. They're
Right.
good,
And
they're right where I want them.
thank
You know what I
God
mean?
that's the response we've always had. We've never been, we've never really struggled with um, too much negativity from people. There's always some people who will, give you a look or stuff, but for the
Yeah,
most part, we've always had priests that are very friendly to kids. So, like at our last parish in California, our priest would say publicly to the whole congregation, he would say, um, "The church is a family, and if there's no baby noises, then there's something wrong, right?"
yeah,
And
yeah,
so we always felt comfortable and welcome. And at this parish too, there's always someone who'll come up to us and give us some positive feedback. And so it's good
yeah.
to have that. Because I know people who have struggled with that, they'll stop going to mass, or they'll feel like
Oh yeah,
I've known people who've left the church and because of something like that, because of that negativity. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
we had a little bit of that. Like we go to a Latin mass every once in a while in Vegas,
mm, yeah,
and I remember there was one lady who I don't know what she was doing. She was keeping track of how many people were there, and so every time the door would open, she would click her little thing like when people are getting on the bus. And so
yeah.
I don't know what's going on with that, but she made some comments, negative comments to my wife, and my wife
Wow.
almost got angry, but she's like, you know what, I'm in mass. I'm just gonna pray for her, and so
Yeah,
you
yeah,
deal with it, but
yeah,
so far so good. We've been here for about a year now, and
yeah.
our thing is, we homeschool the kids, and our focus is really just on the family at this point because with all these young kids, there's
Nice.
there's not much time for anything else.
But it's good that you can shake off that negativity.
Right,
Because I'll be the first to admit, sometimes maybe I let the negativity get under my skin a little more than I should. You
right.
know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, and not from like people online and stuff like that, but like people that unfortunately, like I said earlier, there's just a negative connotation on rap sometimes.
Right.
And so there are people out there, that just will not give us the time of day.
Hmm.
Just, it's it's not even so much that they don't understand hip hop, like they're not even willing to give it a chance. They're not even interested in trying to understand. And they just like I said, they won't give us the time of day. They'll be kind of mean, kind of ugly to us. It's just kind of like for real, like how does that work? You're
The lyric that I read earlier, you mentioned that you said, I almost flip, I almost flip when they told me that I got to get out of Catholic Church, and I'm thinking, man, I got to spit extra hard because I'm speaking about the Catholic truth. So you kind of mentioned there that there's people who maybe are looking at you in a certain way because of that. Is that kind of what you're referencing there?
Well, actually, that particular line, I say, I got a gig. I got a gig like GIG
Oh,
at a
okay.
Catholic church. Yeah, yeah, got a gig. So I was thinking that I got to be extra hard. I think there was another song where I kind of made more of a reference to it. It's called I can't remember the names of my own songs. Um, Outcast. I think it's called Outcast, right? And I said something along the lines of like I say I just say how basically there was just I like kind of list a group of people, different groups of people like deacons and even priests. I'd say teachers, police, even deacons and priests or something along those lines.
Oh,
And
okay.
I say how that it's like sometimes they just won't let you ever get they won't ever look past what you once were or what you were at your lowest point. They won't ever
Right.
look past that sometimes. And that, yeah, unfortunately, even there's been priests like that. There's been deacons like that. There's been teachers or police like that. And it's just like um, it's a little heartbreaking, a little disheartening. I think sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because you put so much time and effort into trying to make sure that you're orthodox and trying to make sure that you are doing things within God's will, doing things within his his yeah like his word within within lines of the magisterium of the church and everything, and then for people to not even be willing to consider that you could be more than what you were at your lowest point in your life. It's just crazy sometimes to me, and so I struggle with that sometimes. I do struggle, like, man, that it's just disheartening, man, and because I don't treat people like that, and I
Right.
think we all have a tendency to we expect people to kind of treat people the way we do, or we expect people to kind of behave the same way we behave. I
Right.
think psychologically something. Um, and when it doesn't happen, you're like, man, that is crazy.
Right.
So I don't
Yeah.
know.
The other lyric that I had that I think kind of speaks to that too. You said, I didn't know what to think. All I knew was I was suffering, and the lack of people caring really troubled me. There was no love. The attitude was more like, don't let the doorknob hit you on the backside.
Yeah, yeah. That's that's kind of where I was. I think I can't remember who I mentioned it to, but so I did grow up Catholic, like I said. So I did go to youth groups and stuff like that,
Right.
and confirmation class and all that type of stuff. And when I was in high school, I got into some pretty serious trouble uh, on some gang related stuff. You know, and I had some, just some pretty serious stuff going on.
Yeah.
And my the leaders of the youth group where I was meeting at the time, we were meeting at their home, right? And they asked me to stop coming. It was just like, um, and I always kind of felt like they treated me different anyway, Um, but they asked me to stop coming because they thought I was going to put everybody else in danger that was there, And I was like, "Wait, aren't you supposed to help troubled people?"
Right.
And that's the way I felt at the time. When I think back about it now, I think they may have had a point, a good valid point, or at least I could see how they could think that way.
Right.
But at the time, I was really upset about it because I was like, I wanted to be there, even if I didn't admit it, I wanted to be there because it was like it was a getaway, and I
Right.
knew it was something positive. I knew it was something that I didn't have to be ashamed of, that I didn't have to, hide. I didn't have to, and so that's kind of what I was talking about in those lines. It's just kind of like I felt like they didn't make any attempt to kind of like intervene for me or to
Right.
kind of, you know, grab me and say, come back. You're welcome here. Stay here.
Well, and that's
You
probably
know,
what you really needed at that time. You were obviously looking for it.
yeah, exactly. And instead, they were just kind of like, okay, psh, see you.
Hmm.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was talking about in that particular line. Um, and so that's kind of why I take the approach that I do of being like, because I don't remember anybody ever, like, I literally don't remember anybody coming to me and trying to evangelize me from the
Right.
Catholic Church
Hmm.
ever. So that's why I kind of like, I can't sit here and complain about it if I'm not going to offer any type of solution or
Right.
try to be part of a solution.
Hmm.
And then at the same time, I can't sit around and just wait for somebody else to give me a green light. It's like, because I might not ever get that green light.
Right.
I'm just going to go out and do it. It's kind of like, Mother Teresa, people laughed at her ideas and they didn't like, she got shut down by bishops and by priests and
Right.
by, and so it's like, hey, as long as I know what I'm doing is, is orthodox and moral, and I'm just going to keep going at it, keep going at it, keep going at it, and be that person that I wish would have intervened on my behalf when I
Mm.
was in high school, when I was in middle school,
Right.
be that for somebody else.
Yeah. It reminds me of Peter, Saint Peter, like when that encounter that he has with Jesus on the boat, and he says, "Depart from me, Lord, for I'm a sinful man." And I was
Hmm.
uh, the approach that Jesus took with that, because he could have said, "You're right, you are," and push
Yeah,
away, because that's kind of like how you're talking about. Instead of them embracing you, they push you away. But Jesus
yeah,
takes the other route, and he says, "No, come and follow me. I'm going to make you a fisher of men." And so I think it goes back to that conversation we were having about pastoral and all that. It is important to be open and embracing to people who maybe aren't perfect or aren't as saintly or holy as we would want them to be, or maybe they're living in a way that goes against
yeah,
faith. But at the same time, there's a fine line that you walk, and I think like
yeah,
Jesus him, basically says, "Come and follow me." But then, so he's not saying that your sin is okay, but
yeah,
he's not distancing himself from you. He's saying you're still welcome to be here, and I think
yeah,
that's kind of the approach we have to take. Is that like in your case, they use that excuse that they're worried about the safety of other people and whether that was valid or not. But what you needed at that moment was someone to embrace you and lead you to this other path, right? And
yeah,
well, I guess not many of us are willing to do that.
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, yeah, for sure, man. And so, like I said, that's why you know, I'm so happy to see guys like you or guys, um, that have been around, have seen things, been places, who can relate to younger people because it makes a difference, man. It makes such a huge difference, and we don't even realize it sometimes. We don't realize how much people are watching what we're doing. Like, we don't realize how much people notice what we're doing, and even people who might not ever make mention of it. We might not ever know that somebody watched this and had a very defining moment listening to this conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But it's cool though to just to know that there are guys out there that are relatable and that are genuinely caring and that are like, maybe we're not perfect in our approaches or maybe we're not perfect in our understandings or maybe we have a hard time trying to find the balance ourselves, but at least we care and we're out doing something about it. You know what I mean? We're
yeah.
not just sitting around and waiting for somebody else to be the answer or to provide us with, you know.
Hmm.
So that's why I'm so thankful for guys like you and so excited to see the work you do. It's pretty
Thank,
cool.
thank you. I feel the same. I think that the work you do, you're reaching out to people who maybe the rest of the church is not willing to reach out to, who are in that same
Yeah.
situation maybe you felt, and it's like that's why when I saw you on Marcus Grodi, I was like the the demographics, it's like two totally different worlds, but your shared faith, brings you together. And I think that's something that's beautiful about the Catholic Church. It's like you can have people from two totally different worlds, two totally different socioeconomic backgrounds, two different races, different languages, whatever. But what
Yeah.
brings us together is our faith in Christ, and I think that's something that's really beautiful.
Yeah, man. It's so cool how God appeals to us in every way. Though He doesn't just appeal to us in one way. He appeals to us through our senses. He appeals to us through our logic. He appeals to us through our emotions, to everything, right? And and all of us have, at the end of the day, our skin color or our language or socioeconomics doesn't change the fact that we have logic and we have emotions and we have all the things that we share in common. It's just as human beings, God communicates to us in those things. So it's only natural that He draws everybody to the Catholic Church. When you go to a Catholic church, like you said, you're going to see everybody from every background. When I
Right.
walk into my parish on Sunday mornings, we've got African American, we've got Mexican, we've got Filipino, we've got Vietnamese, we've got Bosnians, we've got just all these people. We've got old, we've
Yeah.
got young, and it's just like it's not this division. It's because it's like God's calling us by what we all share in common. It's crazy to think about it. And I think that's part of what drew me back to the church. Because when I was out church hopping, I would notice that all the different churches I would go to would be kind of like one particular demographic of people,
Right. Yeah.
and they were really focused on what they had in common as that demographic, as opposed to what we all share in common as humans. I mean,
Mm. Yeah.
uh, I don't know if that makes sense or not, but
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was cool to me. You know, um, you don't see Catholic churches that are just one particular group of people. I mean,
Hmm.
maybe just because of the neighborhood it's in, it might be
Right.
predominantly one thing, but
Hmm.
not because that's what they're catering towards. Does
Right.
that make
Exactly.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool to me. Yeah, man. So yeah.
So what else do you got going on coming up?
Oh man, you're coming up. Actually, next weekend, El Padrecito and a couple of guys from Foundation will be here in Dallas,
Okay.
and we're going to be doing I think it's a, I think it's a confirmation retreat. It's some sort of retreat. We're going to be performing and giving some talks. Um, I am primarily going to be talking about sacraments and kind of like a personal testimony. Um, a lot of times that's what people want to hear from me, is my testimony, which is cool.
Hmm.
Um, and then I think the next thing after that is Houston on October 26th. I'm not doing as much stuff as frequently as I had been at one time,
Hmm.
mostly because been in between projects and in between,
Mm-hmm.
and I just, I want to. I'm not. I don't know. I just wanted to record new material before I get back out there and start doing more stuff.
Yeah.
So we're going to Houston, or at least I'm going to Houston with some other guys, and it's cool. It's going to be at a Catholic church, but it's going to be um, kind of mixed faith. So it's going to be Protestant artists and Catholic artists performing at the same night. That's going to be pretty cool, and that's an all hip hop event, by the way. So that's
Mm.
pretty cool. A friend of mine named Big C's, he's organizing it with the Knights of Columbus and with his parish.
Okay.
And yeah, Big C's actually, I knew him back when we did gangster rap. He was
Oh,
part of this group called, called the I-35 Boys and Hated Proof Records and all that stuff. And we actually knew each other way back then. We'd be doing shows here locally in Texas, and he had his kind of his conversion and reversion back to the Catholic faith too. So that's pretty cool. He's now organizing that in Houston for us. So that's gonna be pretty
yeah.
cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, yeah. Um, it's pretty cool how hip hop does that.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say earlier. I just remembered now.
You got it
I
back.
just I got it back. And I don't know why I thought about it, but I was thinking about how it's kind of funny that I guess my striving to be, authentic and be real in my lyrics. I pride myself on that, right?
Hmm.
Um, I think that's kind of what I credit that, at least partially was leading me back to my Catholic faith. Because when I was doing the Protestant, rap, Christian rap, um, I kind of found myself kind of just repeating what I heard, a pastor say during a sermon, or what
Hmm.
I heard another Christian rapper say, and there would be things that just didn't sit well with me, and I was just like, I go back and I study it, and I'm like, okay, that's why it doesn't sit well with me because I don't agree with it, it
Mm.
doesn't make sense to me, and so um, that's when I really started kind of challenging my thinking and just kind of diving deeper. It's like I told myself, I have a song that I've never recorded it yet. I perform it all the time, but I've never recorded it. It's called
Oh,
Bars for Days, right? And the whole premise of the song is like I tell people jokingly, I say, um, God, permanently healed me, miraculously healed me of writer's block. Because prior to, knowing my faith, when I had this reversion, I could write a couple of bars about God and I'd be like, what do I say next? I don't know what to say
right.
because I didn't know my faith, But then, so I took the time to kind of study my faith and pray and go to church and download all kinds of college courses and apologetics materials and stuff like that. And then I filled my mind with that and I couldn't stop writing about it after that. It's like I couldn't write it one time, now I can't stop writing about it. And I call that bars for days, right? And so in doing that, all of my studies just kept pointing me back to the Catholic Church. And I was kind of like, why is this happening? Like, I don't want to go back to the Catholic Church. That's the last place I want to be. But everything was pointing me in that direction. And then one of the Protestant pastors that um, I would attend his church from time to time. He challenged me on the Eucharist,
Mm.
and honestly, I didn't remember learning about the Eucharist growing up.
Right.
I mean, I was probably taught it, but I don't remember it.
Mm.
And so he was like, do you really believe that's, Jesus in the bread and the wine? And I was like, I don't know. Am I supposed to? Or am I? He was like, well, no, that's not Jesus. And I was like, I don't remember believing that. He was like, that's exactly what Catholics believe. I was like, well, let me go find out. So
Mm.
I went and found out. I was like, yeah, sure enough, that's what we believe. The real presence of Jesus in the Eucharist, right? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go study this and I'm going to prove all my Catholic friends and family wrong.
Mm.
Yeah. And so I went to studying it. Um, and it's funny because like even though I had this kind of this I don't know if you call it animosity, but this kind of dislike for the Catholic Church,
Hmm.
it was mostly because I thought it was false at the
Right.
time. I mean, it wasn't because I had any desire to to slander or bear false witness or anything like that. I didn't want, and so I just told myself, if I'm going to say something, I want it to be actually true. right?
Mm.
And I don't want to go out there and say something about Catholics that they don't believe or that they don't, you know, I want to
Right.
make sure that I'm not making false accusations or anything like that. So let me really understand this teaching about the Eucharist really clearly before I even go trying to refute it.
Yeah.
And so I started, asking around, and I literally went to every church I could find and talked to every person that would talk to me, priests, pastors, everybody. And one of man, I always forget who it was that told me about the church fathers, but somebody had told me to read the church fathers,
Hmm.
and and I did. I read, the Ignatius of Antioch and Justin Martyrs and all those guys, and then I ended up proving the Eucharist to myself, proving that it was true, what
Mm.
Catholics believed, and I was just like, that backfired, and uh, and I just told myself, man, if that's Jesus at the altar, if that's the Creator of the universe, the King of
Right.
Kings, Lord of Lords, at the altar, 375,000 times a day throughout the world, you know, how can I sit there and say I love Jesus and then walk away from him at the altar and go to another church because I like, you know, whatever it is I like better
Yeah.
over there. You know, it's like that's Jesus. I mean, I'll be the first to admit sometimes the homilies are kind of boring and kind of bland,
Yeah.
but you know what? That that real presence of Jesus, man, you're not going to get it anywhere else. And so I just told myself, I'm coming home, and I did, and even though I had a lot of doubts and questions still in my mind, they all kind of fell into place. The Marian doctrines and all that type of stuff, they all fell into place. And so I was just like, I think, I don't know, man. I think maybe if people really, maybe if we, that might be a good starting place, for trying to get that clarity that we talked about earlier.
Hmm.
Maybe start with the source from the summit, which is
Right.
the Eucharist, right?
Mm.
And if people can really kind of come to grips with that being Jesus and knowing that you're not going to find that anywhere else,
Right.
that might be a good starting point for them. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just thoughts.
See the point there because I was talking about to my wife about this a while back because my her parents left the church and they're I don't know if they're just non-denominational, I guess, but basically it came up because we were going somewhere on like a vacation and we asked them, "Oh, are you guys gonna go to church on Sunday? Because we're gonna go to mass on Sunday morning because they were going with us on this trip." And so she said, "Oh, I don't know, we'll see." And so I was talking to my wife about that. I said, "Well, think about it. It makes sense because if for a Protestant, if going to church is basically just a sermon, a Bible, it's like a Bible study, right?
Yeah,
If that's all that you're getting at church, if you're not getting the real presence, if you're not, receiving the Eucharist, that's pretty much all you're going for, right? It's the Bible study. Well, what's to stop you from just doing that at home? Anyone can pick up a Bible and read the Bible at home, right?
yeah,
So it kind of, the Sunday obligation doesn't really work unless you have the real presence in the Eucharist. Because it's like,
yeah,
what else am I doing? I'm just going to church to listen to someone talk about Jesus or read the Bible, or I can do
yeah,
that
yeah.
anywhere, but you can't receive the Eucharist anywhere. It's different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason why Scripture, when it records like the apostles gathering, on the first day of the week to break the bread, for the breaking of the
Right.
bread. It wasn't like, because that's always been what the Mass revolved around, and obviously we got the liturgy of the Word and liturgy of the Eucharist, right? But the pinnacle of the Mass is the breaking of the bread. It
Right.
wasn't, didn't say the apostles gathered on the first day for the sermon
Yeah.
or the, or the, it was I guess we call it a homily, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, and I try to get people to understand that it's like, obviously we venerate the word. That's exactly what the priest does,
Mhm.
when he's standing in front of the altar with the Bible in the air like this, he's venerating the word right before he, reads the gospel, or whatever. Um, but that's not the pinnacle of the mass. The pinnacle of the mass is Jesus himself.
Right.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I think if we can get people to understand that, at least that's my thoughts on it, because there's a reason why it's called the source and the summit,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Maybe we have a year of the Eucharist or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Be a good idea.
yeah. Maybe do some more Eucharistic congresses or something around the areas.
Yeah.
More Eucharistic processions or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That might be kind of cool. Yeah, yeah, man. So,
All right. So,
but
so can people find out more about your music and all the stuff that's going on with you?
where can they find out more? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Oh, you can go to foundnationfamily.com. Um,
Foundnation.com.
yeah, foundnationfamily.com. They can just kind of Google me. I always tell people just Google me. You know, it's the letter C, the number two, and then it's SIX. So it's C2SIX. Just Google that name. You're gonna find all my social media, the Twitter, the Instagram, the Facebook, YouTube, all that stuff. I have a Snapchat. I don't know how to use it, so I can't remember the last time I logged into it. And speaking of that, I got some open spots in my top 8 on MySpace. Nah. No, but yeah, they can just follow me there. Yeah, and there's lots of music for free download out there. Um, they can find it on Pandora, Spotify, all that stuff. So if you have Pandora, Spotify, just put in Foundation, put in C2SIX, you find the music. Um,
So do you have
I don't
solo
know.
stuff and stuff with Foundation?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
We've got Foundation as a group. I do solo stuff, and actually have a side project with a really good friend of mine named Nate G.
Mm-hmm.
And he's actually a Protestant artist. He's a Protestant rapper, and
Okay.
we have a joint project that we do together called Los Cristeros.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So that one right there, man, that's cool because man, that one's kind of like an artistic endeavor too. So, well, it's all artistic, right?
Right.
But I get to be more myself on that one. Not more myself. So, like I said earlier, I grew up and I listened to a lot of Chicano rap. I
Right.
love incorporating that Latin sound into my music. I just love it, doing the Spanglish and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, but not a lot of people do that. Um, Especially nowadays, it's more mumble rap type stuff, and
Mm.
um, so I don't get a chance to do it as often as I'd like to.
Mm.
But my friend Nate, he's really into that style too. He's really into that kind of style, that Latin rap. So we're like, man, let's do a whole project with nothing but that. So that whole Los Cristeros CD or project, um, it's every song on there's like with the Latin flavors, got mariachis in it and guitars and you know all this Spanish type drums and stuff like that. It's a really really cool project. Um, we had a pretty cool little tour with that. I think we toured like 6 or 7 states with that one.
Okay.
Um, it was pretty cool, man. So, and that's like I said, that's with a Protestant friend of mine.
So that's what I was
So,
gonna ask you. So as a Protestant, how did you guys come up with the name Los Cristeros?
well, because Los Cristeros, um, I guess for people who don't know the story, right? They kind of fought the secular government, on behalf of the church. When the church was being persecuted in Mexico, right? Um, but I don't really think they were excluding anybody necessarily. You
Mm.
know, it was just God's people. It's all God's people. Uh, I guess if you had to kind of translate Cristero into English, I guess the best way to describe it would be like a soldier for Christ, right?
Right. Right.
Maybe it's kind of something along those lines, right?
Yeah.
And so um, I had maybe suggested the name because I felt like our Protestant brothers and sisters, even if they have a different understanding, or even if they, um, maybe we disagree on some things, right? I don't think that their zeal or their faith or their love for God, their desire for God is any less genuine than
Yeah.
ours. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
I don't think it's any less genuine. It's just you know it's just how they've come to understand things, you know.
Right, and
And
I'm
God,
sure
that's what God calls
if
us to
something
do.
like that happened again, like here in America, we would both be on the same side, right? Fighting that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah. So that's
okay.
kind of why I suggested it, because I was like, you know what? It's just you're every bit as much of a Cristiano as me.
Right.
Let's
Yeah.
just call it that, you know. And so that's what we kind of rolled with that. So
Hmm.
it's like, you know, and on top of that, it just sounds cool.
Well, I'll have to check that one out. I haven't listened to that, but I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, go to my YouTube page. It's on there.
Okay.
The whole CD, the whole album's on there.
Okay.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Other than that, you know, people want to book me. I do speaking engagements. I do you know, the performances. They can just, you know, email me. My email is C2SIX dot info@gmail.com.
Okay.
Um, Pretty easy. Or they can go on the website. That's easier sometimes. They can, you know, I'm pretty easy to deal with. They can just send me a message directly on social media. We'll
Okay.
chop it up like that. You
Yeah.
know, yeah. I when they send the message to the website, it goes directly to my email anyway.
Okay.
So yeah. So either way, you're gonna get at me. Yeah.
All
So
right.
that's it, man. Yeah.
Well, it's been nice getting to talk and chat and get to know you a little bit more. Thanks
Oh
for
yeah.
taking the time or making the time.
Thank you. No, thank you for having me. And anytime, man. Anytime, man. Yeah. I always got you. I always got you in my prayers, man.
Thank
You
you.
know, believe it or not, you know. And by the way, before I forget, when I first came across you on social media, you had hair.
I did. I
You had
did.
the long curly hair, man. What happened to that? I meant to ask you that earlier before I forget.
I guess I'm getting old and started going bald, and I told my wife, because I was seeing myself in pictures, and on the sides, it was good, but on the top, I was losing a lot. And
Oh man.
I'm 6'2". My wife is 5 feet. She's Mexican. She's a short little woman, and so she doesn't see the top. So she's like, "Oh, it looks
Uh-huh.
fine, fine, it looks fine." But then when we would do stuff, because we're always going out and traveling with the kids and stuff, when we take pictures, I would always see
Uh-huh.
like it's all curly, and then you just see the shiny bald head on the top. I'm like,
Oh man, I never saw that. I never. Yeah.
so
Okay.
I was
Yeah.
like, it's gotta go. So
Okay.
one,
Well, it's a good look on you, man.
yeah, thank you, thank
Bald head.
you.
Nothing wrong with the bald head,
Yeah,
man. Cool. Well, thanks again for having me, man. I appreciate it. God bless you and your family.
thank you. Likewise, and hopefully we can do this again.
For sure. All right. We'll talk to you later, brother.
All right, God bless.
All right.